The second delegation to Earth was very different from the first. No enforcers, no weapons, no arrogance. Just Ambassador Hyan, Speaker Threx, and representatives from the 20 species suffering most from humanity's absence. They sent a formal request for a meeting and waited nervously for a response. To their surprise, Earth agreed within 3 days. They were given landing coordinates and security instructions. This time they followed every rule without complaint. They surrendered nothing because they brought nothing except hope. Prime Minister Do Hyun met them in a simple conference room in Geneva. He was a calm man in his 60s with gray hair and tired eyes. Beside him sat Minister of Technology Ji Won and Minister of Economics Seo Hyun. No intimidation, no grand displays, just 3 humans and a table full of data tablets. Ambassador Hyan spoke first. His voice was respectful, almost humble. Prime Minister, we come to acknowledge our mistakes. The Council did not value humanity's contributions. We took your work for granted. We treated you as servants rather than partners. We were wrong. Do Hyun nodded but said nothing. He gestured to Minister Ji Won. Ji Won activated a holographic display. Numbers and charts filled the air above the table. I want to show you something. This is data on human losses during our time with the Council. 15,000 humans died in rescue operations. 8,000 died fighting pirates. 23,000 died from diseases while providing medical aid on colony worlds. The display showed names and faces, young people, old people, volunteers who believed in helping others. Each one barely mentioned in Council records. Each one forgotten. Every one of these people had families, Ji Won continued. They had dreams. They gave their lives believing they were building something meaningful, that their sacrifice mattered. The Council never even said thank you. The delegation sat in silence. Speaker Threx looked like she might cry. She had never seen these numbers before. No one had bothered to count human losses. Minister Seo Hyun spoke next. Her voice was cold and professional. Let's talk about economics. Over 200 years, humanity spent 40% of our total economic output supporting Council operations. 40%. Do you understand what that means? We could have educated every human child to the highest level. We could have cured every disease. We could have built paradise on 100 worlds. Instead, we spent those resources helping you. She pulled up more data. In return, the Council compensated us for less than 2% of costs. You claimed it was fair market value for our services, but you never asked what those services cost us. Seo Hyun leaned forward. We could have been wealthy. We could have been advanced. Instead, we were tired and poor because we chose to help, and you treated us like garbage. Ambassador Hyan's hands were shaking. We did not know. We should have known, but we did not look. We did not care to look. Prime Minister, we are here to make this right. The Council is prepared to offer humanity everything. A seat on the Executive Council. Full voting rights on all matters. Complete control over all auxiliary operations. Generous compensation. Retroactive payments for past services. Formal apologies from every member species. Whatever you need, whatever you want, please come back. Do Hyun listened quietly. When Hyan finished, Do Hyun folded his hands on the table. No. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. No. Threx repeated. But millions are suffering. Entire colonies are at risk. Surely humanity will not stand by while innocent people die. Minister Ji Won answered, her voice sharp. We stood by you for 200 years. We saved your people. We fixed your problems. We died for your colonies. And you treated us like servants. Forgive us if we are not eager to resume that relationship. Hyan looked desperate. What do you want? Name your terms, anything. Do Hyun raised a hand. Let me be clear. Humanity is not rejoining the Galactic Council. That organization is a symbol of everything that went wrong. Hierarchy, arrogance, species ranked by imagined superiority. We will not return to that, he paused, letting the words sink in. Then he continued. However, we are not without compassion. We understand that people are suffering. Many of them are innocent. They did not make the decisions that led to this situation. He activated his own data tablet. A document appeared in the holographic display. We are creating something new. The Cooperative Systems Alliance. Any species that wishes to join is welcome. But this alliance operates on different principles. The document outlined the structure. Equal partnership between all member species. Proportional contributions based on population and resources. Mutual respect required. human leadership in areas of human expertise, but other species would lead in their areas of strength, binding arbitration for disputes. No species considered superior to another. These are non-negotiable principles, Do-hyun said. Any species that joins must accept humans as equals, must contribute fairly, must treat all members with respect. We will not accept tokenism or empty promises. Ambassador Hayan read the document carefully. The terms were fair but would be difficult for proud species to accept. Admitting humans were equals meant acknowledging 2 centuries of wrong treatment. Contributing proportionally meant some wealthy species would pay significantly more than they had before. What about species that do not join? Threx asked quietly. Do-hyun's expression remained neutral. Humanity will focus its resources on alliance members. Non-members will need to solve their own problems. We wish them well, of course. It was not a threat. That made it more terrifying. Humanity was not seeking revenge. They were not trying to punish anyone. They were simply done helping those who did not value their help. Seo-hyun added one more point. The Alliance will provide all the services humanity used to provide the Council. Monitoring, medical support, technical assistance, emergency response, but only for members. Non-members will receive nothing from us, not even commercial contracts. The delegation understood. Join the Alliance and receive help. Refuse and face the galaxy alone. They returned to Andromeda Prime with the proposal. The debate that followed was fierce. Proud species resisted. The Valkorians found it insulting to accept humans as equals. The remaining Thoughtweaver leaders argued they should rebuild on their own, rather than submit to human terms. The Krell Empire delegates worried about the costs, but colonies were falling. The blight was spreading. Pirates were attacking with impunity. Trade had collapsed. People were dying. Pride was expensive, and they could no longer afford the price. The Aurelian Confederacy applied first. They had lost billions in the trade route disasters. Their application included a formal apology for past treatment of humans and acknowledgement of human expertise. It was reviewed by Earth's Alliance Committee and approved within a week. Other species followed. Not all of them, but enough. Small species that had always been marginalized by the Council. Mid-tier species that recognize practical reality. Even some of the proud species, after more disasters convinced them they had no choice. The Valkorians held out for months. Their warrior culture could not accept being equal to humans. Then pirates raided their homeworld, something that should have been impossible. The raid was brief but devastating. The new Valkorian High Command applied for Alliance membership the next day, including a public statement about learning respect through loss. The Thoughtweavers tried to rebuild their knowledge independently. They spent a year working on it. They made progress, but it was slow and incomplete. Finally, their Council of Minds voted to apply for Alliance membership. Their application included an acknowledgement that intelligence comes in many forms, and that technical expertise deserves recognition. The Krell Empire was the last major species to hold out. Ambassador Hayan argued desperately with his government. They were losing colonies, losing trade, losing population to preventable disasters. But the old leadership could not accept subordination to humans. Then the population voted them out. It was the first democratic transition in Krell history. Hayan was elected premier. His first act was to formally apply for Alliance membership. His application included a public apology broadcast across the entire empire, acknowledging the terrible way they had treated humans and asking forgiveness. Within 3 years, the Cooperative Systems Alliance had 70 member species. Applications arrived weekly. Earth's Alliance Committee reviewed each one carefully. Species that demonstrated genuine respect and willingness to contribute fairly were accepted. Species still clinging to ideas of superiority were declined, with invitations to reapply when they were ready. The Galactic Council still existed technically. 12 species remained as members, refusing to accept the new reality. They held sessions in the Crystal Spire, but the chamber felt empty with so few delegates. They passed resolutions condemning humanity's coercion and demanding return to the old system. The resolutions were noted by no one and changed nothing. The Unity monument they had built stood incomplete. The foundation had cracked because the soil stability issues were never fixed. Human engineers could have prevented that. But there were no human engineers in council space anymore. The monument stood as an accidental memorial to what happens when you value symbols over substance. Ambassador Minho, now Director of Alliance Affairs, worked from a comfortable office in Tokyo. It was also completely unhelpful. Threx tried again. Requesting an emergency depot, the council delegation's ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. Ambassador Quill stood on the bridge looking at the system maps. He expected to see a minor species home system, lightly defended and vulnerable. What he saw instead made him reconsider everything he thought he knew about humanity. 50 warships hung in formation near Jupiter. They were not the small patrol vessels humans had operated during their council service. These were heavy warships bristling with weapon systems that council sensors barely recognized. Advanced shields glowed around each hull. The ships moved in perfect coordination, clearly well-trained and ready for combat. Around Mars, massive defense platforms orbited in rings. Their weapon arrays tracked the council ship from the moment it entered the system. Near Earth itself, construction was visible everywhere. Shipyards building more vessels, research stations conducting classified experiments, mining operations on the moon working at full capacity. The communication system activated. A calm female voice spoke. "Council vessel, this is Admiral Somin of Earth's home fleet. You are entering sovereign human space. State your purpose and submit to security protocols or you will be turned away." Quill was not used to being addressed this way. "This is Ambassador Quill of the Galactic Council. We are here on official council business. We demand immediate access to Earth's government." There was a pause. Then Admiral Somin responded, her tone unchanged. "Ambassador, humanity is no longer affiliated with the Galactic Council. You have no official standing here. However, we will grant your delegation permission to land if you follow our security requirements. Surrender all weapons. Submit to scanning. Accept escort to the diplomatic facility. These terms are not negotiable." The 3 council enforcers objected immediately. They were elite warriors. They did not surrender weapons. They did not submit to scanning by inferior species. Quill silenced them. They had come this far. They would accept the humiliation temporarily. Once they had delivered their demands, things would return to normal. The council ship landed at Geneva Spaceport. Human security teams met them, professional and courteous, but clearly ready for trouble. The enforcers had to surrender their weapons. Everyone passed through scanning systems that mapped their biology and checked for concealed technology. It was thorough and invasive, making clear that humans now controlled the situation completely. They were taken to a simple conference building. No grand architecture, no crystal spires, just a functional government facility. Quill found it insulting. They were led to a meeting room with a basic table and chairs. They waited for an hour before anyone came. The human who entered was not the Prime Minister. She introduced herself as Diplomatic Liaison Borum, a mid-level bureaucrat. Quill's anger flared. They had sent a delegation led by the Council's most senior members, and Earth sent a clerk? Borum sat down and smiled politely. "Welcome to Earth. How can we help you today?" Quill slammed his hand on the table. "You know exactly why we are here. The galaxy is suffering because humanity abandoned their obligations. Systems are failing. People are dying. You will resume operations immediately." Borum's smile did not change. "I'm sorry, but I think there's been a misunderstanding. Humanity has no obligations to the Galactic Council. We withdrew following proper procedures. All our commitments were fulfilled before we left." Speaker Threx leaned forward. "Let us be practical. The Council recognizes that mistakes were made. We are prepared to offer improved terms, better compensation, more respect for human expertise, even a seat on advisory committees. Surely we can reach an agreement." Borum shook her head gently. "I appreciate the offer, but Earth's government has made its decision. We are no longer participating in Council operations." Quill stood up, trying to intimidate her with his height. "You do not understand the situation. The Council can make life very difficult for humanity. Trade sanctions, travel restrictions, military pressure. You are one species. We are 200. "Do not be foolish." Borum remained seated, completely calm. "Ambassador, let me be very clear. Humanity is not afraid of the Galactic Council. We have spent 2 centuries helping you. Now we are helping ourselves. If you wish to impose sanctions, that is your choice. We will manage." She stood and walked to the door. "Your ship will be allowed to depart within 24 hours. Please use that time to rest and resupply. Safe travels, Ambassador." They were escorted back to their ship. No one answered their further demands. No one offered to negotiate. They were simply sent away like unwanted visitors. As their ship lifted off, Quill watched the human warships tracking them. The weapons stayed locked on target until the Council vessel jumped to faster than light and left the system. On the journey back, Quill sat in his quarters and wrote an angry report. He called for sanctions against humanity. He called for military action. He called for teaching these upstart humans a lesson about power and hierarchy. 8 months after humanity's withdrawal, the situation across the galaxy had moved beyond inconvenient into catastrophic. The Aurelian Confederacy lost 3 major trade ships in the Necros expanse. The ships had miscalculated safe passage through gravitational anomalies. Human navigators used to update the routes constantly as conditions changed. Now the routes were outdated and deadly. The Confederacy tried to hire human navigators as private contractors. They offered triple the standard rate. Earth's Commerce Authority responded with a brief message. All human deep space specialists are currently assigned to internal projects. No personnel are available for external contracts. Pirates grew bold. The marauder clans had always existed on the galaxy's edges, but human rapid response fleets had kept them contained. Now that pressure was gone. Pirates raided 12 council worlds in 1 month. They attacked merchant convoys, stole cargo, and disappeared into dark space. The Valkorian warrior fleets pursued them with fury. But military might alone was not enough. Pirates did not fight honorable battles. They ambushed vulnerable targets and fled before reinforcements could arrive. Hunting them required patience, intelligence networks, and surveillance systems. The kind of work Valkorians had always considered beneath them when humans did it. The warrior commanders requested human intelligence support. Colonel Taehyun, Earth's defense liaison, responded personally. Humanity is no longer affiliated with the Galactic Council's military operations. We wish you success in your endeavors. The message was polite and final. 1 year after withdrawal, something worse arrived. Scientists on the Thoughtweaver homeworld detected it first, a silicon-based organism, microscopic but rapidly multiplying. It fed on electronic components, spreading through data networks like a virus through living tissue. They called it the Blight. The Blight consumed the Thoughtweaver digital libraries in 18 hours. 3,000 years of accumulated knowledge gone. Scientists worked desperately to contain it, but the Blight spread faster than they could react. By the time they established quarantine protocols, irreplaceable data had been destroyed. The Blight spread to other worlds through data connections. Colony after colony reported the same horror. Systems failing, libraries vanishing, infrastructure collapsing as the organism consumed every circuit it touched. Dr. Jiho watched the reports from his office on Earth. He remembered encountering the Blight 7 years earlier on an uninhabited world. His team had studied it for months, developed countermeasures, and created protocols to prevent it from spreading through networks. Those protocols had been implemented across all human-assisted systems. The protocols had been included in the technical documentation humans provided during withdrawal. Every species had received complete instructions. Apparently, none of them had bothered to implement them. The warnings about the Blight had seemed like unnecessary human paranoia. Now the Blight was destroying civilizations. The Thoughtweaver sent an urgent request to Dr. Jiho. They needed his expertise desperately. They offered any price, any terms. Just please help. Dr. Jiho read the request in his office. He thought about the years his team had spent developing those countermeasures. He thought about how the Council had dismissed his warnings. He thought about the colleagues he had lost to diseases while serving on alien worlds, deaths barely acknowledged. He wrote a brief response. My research teams are focused on human priorities. I'm afraid we don't have resources available for external projects. However, I wish you success in addressing this challenge. The message was professional. It was also devastating. The Thoughtweavers had no one else to turn to. Speaker Threx called an emergency council session. Half the delegates could not attend because travel had become too dangerous. Communications were failing because of the Blight. The chamber that used to hold 200 species now had barely 50 representatives present. Threx looked exhausted. She had aged visibly in the past year. We must face reality. The Council needs humanity. Pride has cost us enough. I propose Resolution 5290. Official acknowledgement that humanity's return is necessary, and authorization to negotiate from a position of mutual respect. Ambassador Quill was not present. He had been removed from his position after the Tarnox disaster. His replacement, Ambassador Hyan, stood to support the resolution. We, Captain Borax of the Valkorian warrior fleet, had commanded trade escorts for 20 years. His record was perfect, not a single ship lost under his protection. He took pride in his ability to sense danger, to read sensor displays, to keep merchants safe through the most dangerous routes in the galaxy. The Keswick Corridor was one of those dangerous routes. Asteroid fields drifted through it, pushed by gravitational currents from nearby stars. But the corridor cut travel time by 3 days, so merchants used it constantly. Borax had guided hundreds of convoys through the Keswick. He knew every trick, every safe path. Today's convoy was routine: 15 merchant ships carrying grain, manufactured goods, and medical supplies. The ships moved in formation behind Borax's warship. His sensors showed clear space ahead. He gave the order to increase speed. The debris field appeared without warning. Tumbling asteroids and ship fragments moving fast. Borax's first thought was that his sensors had malfunctioned. They had never missed something this big before. His second thought was that there was no time to avoid collision. 3 merchant ships hit the debris before they could react. The impacts tore through their hulls. Oxygen vented into space. Emergency systems failed. Borax watched in horror as 200 crew members died in seconds. The remaining ships scattered, avoiding more debris. It took an hour to regroup and assess damage. Borax sat in his command chair, staring at sensor logs. The debris field had been there all along. His sensors had simply failed to detect it. That should have been impossible. Later, during the investigation, a Valkorian technical officer found the answer. The sensors had been working perfectly. They were just missing data they used to receive. The warning buoys that monitored the Keswick corridor were no longer transmitting. Those buoys had been maintained by humans. Now they sat silent in the dark, transferred to council control but never actually monitored by anyone. The investigation report was filed. No one was blamed. It was just an unfortunate accident. The families of the dead received compensation. Captain Borax requested a transfer to a different route. He could not shake the feeling that someone should have warned him. Someone used to warn him. He had just never noticed. On Praxis 4, a Thoughtweaver colony world, the data network failed at 3:17 in the morning. One moment everything was working. The next moment every screen went blank. Every computer lost connection. Every system that relied on the network went offline. The medical center could not access patient records. Doctors stood in hallways holding data tablets that showed nothing but error messages. Patients in critical care units had their monitoring systems fail. Nurses had to check vital signs manually, rushing from room to room. The agricultural systems that managed food production across the planet went offline. Automated systems that controlled irrigation, fertilization, and harvesting stopped working. Farmers reverted to manual controls they barely remembered how to use. Transportation stopped. The transit systems that moved millions of Thoughtweavers through the colony cities every day relied on network coordination. Without it, vehicles could not navigate safely. The entire planet was suddenly paralyzed. Technical teams worked desperately to fix the problem. They had no idea where to start. The network was incredibly complex, built over decades, maintained by specialists who understood every connection and protocol. Those specialists had been human. They had left detailed manuals when they departed, but the manuals were thousands of pages long and written in technical language the Thoughtweavers had never bothered to learn. It took 6 days to restore basic network functions. It took another month to stabilize the system. During that time, the colony lost productivity worth billions of credits. 300 patients in the medical center died because doctors could not access treatment protocols quickly enough. A Thoughtweaver administrator named Calix was assigned to investigate. His report was thorough and damning. The network had been maintained by human engineers for 70 years. During that time, local Thoughtweavers had never learned how it worked. They had simply assumed it would always work. When the humans left, they had provided complete documentation. No one had read it. No one had thought they needed to. Calix's report concluded with a recommendation: hire human technicians to restore proper maintenance. The Colony Council voted down the recommendation. Thoughtweavers were supposed to be the most intelligent species in the galaxy. They would not admit they needed humans. On the Krell mining world of Tarnox, people started getting sick. At first, it seemed like a normal flu virus. Workers stayed home for a few days, then recovered. But the virus was spreading fast, mutating as it moved through the population. Within 2 weeks, hospitals were overwhelmed. The local medical director, Administrator Kelvin, was not worried at first. The Krell had excellent doctors. They would contain this easily. But the virus kept spreading. The containment protocols they tried were not working. Infected workers were supposed to be isolated, but the disease appeared in areas that should have been clean. Kelvin reviewed the medical records and found something strange. There had been containment protocols in place, sophisticated systems for tracking disease spread and preventing outbreaks. Those protocols had been designed by Dr. Jiho's human medical team. The team had left copies of all their work when they departed. The files were stored in the medical center's archives. Kelvin accessed the files. There were hundreds of documents, instructions for containment, guides for genetic analysis of viruses, procedures for vaccine development, protocols for emergency response. Everything needed to handle this outbreak had been written down and provided to them, but the documents were dense and technical. They referenced systems and procedures the Krell doctors did not understand. The humans had tried to train local staff, but the Krell administrators had resented taking instruction from a lesser species. They had attended the minimum required training sessions and ignored everything they were taught. Now 2 million Krell were infected. The hospitals had no space. The quarantine zones were inadequate. The virus was approaching neighboring cities. Kelvin called an emergency meeting with the Planetary Council. He told them the truth. They needed human medical expertise immediately. The council debated for 3 hours. Asking humans for help meant admitting they could not handle the situation. It meant acknowledging that humans had been right about the importance of those protocols. It meant swallowing their pride. Some council members wanted to keep trying on their own. Others insisted they had no choice. Finally, they voted to send a formal request to Earth. The request was carefully worded to avoid sounding desperate. They simply asked if human medical consultants might be available to assist with a disease outbreak, as a purely commercial transaction with appropriate compensation. Earth's Medical Services Authority responded within 24 hours. Their response was polite and brief. All human medical specialists are currently assigned to internal projects. No personnel are available for external contracts at this time. We wish you success in addressing your medical situation. Kelvin read the response 3 times. It said nothing hostile. It made no threats. It simply said no. Earth was not refusing out of spite. Earth just had other priorities now. Priorities that did not include helping people who had never appreciated their help. The outbreak continued for 4 more months before Krell doctors finally contained it. By then 2 million were sick and 60,000 were dead. The economic damage was catastrophic. Mining operations had stopped. Trade had been disrupted. The planet's entire medical system needed rebuilding. Ambassador Quill read the reports from Tarnox while sitting in his luxurious apartment on Andromeda Prime. He also read reports about the Keswick corridor disaster and the Praxis 4 network failure. Similar problems were being reported across the galaxy. Systems failing, disasters occurring, operations collapsing. He called for an emergency council session. When the delegates assembled, Quill stood at the central podium and accused humanity of sabotage. They must have damaged systems before leaving. They must have planted viruses or set timers on equipment failures. This was an attack on the Galactic Council. Speaker Threx ordered an investigation. Technical teams from every major species examined the systems humans had transferred. They found nothing. No sabotage, no viruses, no hidden damage. Everything had been transferred properly with complete documentation. The terrible truth was simple. Humans had not sabotaged anything. They had just stopped fixing everything. The galaxy ran on 1,000 invisible services that humans had provided. Monitoring, maintenance, emergency response, medical support, technical expertise. The galaxy had gotten so used to these services that they forgot someone had to actually do the work. Now the work was not being done. And the galaxy was discovering what happens when you take infrastructure for granted. Threx tried to contact Ambassador Minho, her. Communication was routed to Earth's diplomatic corps. An automated system responded with a polite message. Humanity has withdrawn from the Galactic Council. We no longer maintain representatives for council affairs. If you have inquiries regarding former human operations, please submit them in writing to the Archive Department for historical reference. The message was professional and correct. 3 months had passed like a slow countdown. Ambassador Minho watched from his desk as the council chamber filled with delegates. Today they would vote on Resolution 4831, the restructuring of auxiliary services. The resolution had been drafted by Ambassador Quill himself, proud of his efficiency improvements. Minho had read the resolution carefully. It reassigned all human personnel under direct council oversight. Every decision humans made would need approval from 3 separate committees. Human ship captains would report to Valkorian commanders. Human doctors would need permission from Krell administrators before treating patients. Human engineers would submit daily reports to Thoughtweaver supervisors. The vote was not close. 170 species voted in favor. Only 12 voted against. The rest abstained. Ambassador Quill stood to give a victory speech about proper hierarchy and efficient resource allocation. Most delegates were not listening. They were checking their schedules for the evening reception, celebrating the new monument's construction progress. When Quill finally finished speaking, Minho pressed his button to request recognition. This time, Speaker Threx acknowledged him immediately, perhaps feeling generous after such an easy victory. "The human delegation wishes to make a statement," Minho said. He stood holding a single data tablet. His voice was steady and professional, showing no emotion. "Humanity acknowledges Resolution 4831. In response, we are invoking Article 47 of the Council Charter." That got attention. Article 47 was rarely used. It allowed any species to voluntarily withdraw from Council operations while maintaining peaceful relations. Several delegates looked confused. Others looked amused, thinking this was some kind of protest stunt. Effective immediately, all human personnel will return to Earth and its colonies. All human ships will return to Sol system. All infrastructure built and maintained by humans will be deactivated and transferred to Council control. We will provide all necessary access codes and technical documentation. This process will be completed within 30 days. The chamber was quiet. Then someone laughed. It was Quill. "Is humanity having a tantrum? Do you think the Council will beg you to stay? We will manage perfectly well without you." Minho looked at him calmly. "We are following proper procedures as outlined in the Charter. All human obligations will be fulfilled completely before withdrawal. We wish the Council success in their future endeavors." Speaker Threx waved her hand dismissively. "If humanity wishes to withdraw, that is their choice. This session is adjourned. I remind all delegates that the monument reception begins in 1 hour." The delegates filed out, chattering about parties and politics. Not one of them stayed to ask Minho what this withdrawal would actually mean. They would find out soon enough. The next morning, Captain Yuna began recalling the Deep Space Monitoring Network. Her orders were clear and simple. Bring everyone home. 4,000 monitoring stations across the galaxy started shutting down. Human crews packed their equipment, filed formal transfer documents with local authorities, and departed. The warning buoys that detected asteroid fields went silent. The sensor networks that tracked pirate movements went dark. The relay satellites that provided early warning of spatial anomalies were powered down. Captain Yuna made sure every station was properly logged as transferred to Council control. Every access code was provided. Every technical manual was filed. The Council received thousands of documents. They filed them away without reading them. Dr. Jiho recalled his medical research teams from 40 colony worlds. His people had been studying local diseases, developing treatments, training local doctors. Now they packed up their research, backed up their databases, and came home. Dr. Jiho made sure to leave copies of all medical protocols with local governments. Instructions for containing outbreaks, treating radiation exposure, managing colony health systems. The local government stored the documents in archives. They had never read human medical protocols before. They saw no reason to start now. Engineer Hyunwoo initiated shutdown protocols for the Galactic Data Network. This was the most complex part of the withdrawal. The network connected every Council world, carrying communications, financial transactions, emergency alerts, and entertainment streams. Humans had built it over 100 years. Humans maintained it every day. Hyunwoo and his team worked carefully. They did not sabotage anything. They did not delete anything. They transferred complete control to Council technical services, along with detailed manuals explaining how everything worked. The manuals filled thousands of pages. They covered routine maintenance, emergency repairs, security protocols, and system upgrades. The Council Technical Services received the manuals and put them in storage. The network was working fine. Why would they need instructions? Human merchant ships returned to Sol system. Hundreds of vessels that had carried cargo across the galaxy now docked at Earth stations. The trade routes they had serviced were left empty. Human escort ships that had protected merchant convoys from pirates came home too. The small, fast ships that responded to distress calls were recalled. In shipyards throughout human space, changes were happening. The ships were being retrofitted. Weapon systems that had been hidden were now installed openly. Shield generators that humans had kept secret were activated. The resources that had been spent helping aliens were redirected to human worlds. Ambassador Minho worked through the final days methodically. He filed closure reports for every human operation. He certified that all transfers were complete. He notified every council committee that had oversight of human activities. Everything was done by the book, following every procedure perfectly. On his last day, Minho walked through the empty human delegation office. The walls were bare. The computers were wiped clean. All the reports, all the records of lives saved and disasters prevented, had been backed up and sent to Earth. The council could request copies if they wanted. Minho doubted they would. He carried one small box of personal items to his ship. At the landing pad, he looked back at the crystal spire one last time. The monument construction was progressing. The grand crystal tower was rising where the Human Emergency Center had stood. It would be beautiful when finished. Useless but beautiful. No one came to see him off. No delegate thanked him for 200 years of human service. No one asked him to reconsider. They were all at another reception, celebrating something or other. Minho's ship lifted off. As it climbed toward orbit, he could see the construction site below. Workers were placing the monument's foundation. None of them were human. The foundation looked slightly uneven, but perhaps it was just the angle. Human engineers would have noticed. Human engineers would have fixed it. But there were no human engineers anymore. The ship jumped to faster-than-light travel. Earth was 6 days away. Minho sat in his quarters and wrote his final report. It was short. Withdrawal complete. All obligations fulfilled. All systems transferred. Council did not object or request reconsideration. Humanity is no longer affiliated with Galactic Council operations. He sent the report and then pulled up another document, one he had been reading during the long months of preparation. It was a contingency plan developed decades ago, back when humanity first joined the Council. The plan was titled Integration Fleet Protocols. It outlined how humanity would defend itself if the galaxy ever became hostile. No one outside human space knew about the integration fleet. No one knew about the weapons research, the shield technology, the strategic planning that had continued quietly for 2 centuries. Humans had hoped never to need these preparations. They had wanted to be part of the galactic community. The galaxy had chosen differently. The galaxy had chosen to see humans as servants. So humanity would withdraw and the servants would stop serving. What happened next was up to the galaxy. Minho closed the document and looked at the stars streaming past his window. Somewhere out there, the Galactic Council was celebrating their monument. Soon they would discover what they had actually built, a tombstone for an age of unity they had taken for granted. The ship jumped again, pushing deeper into human space. Behind them, the galaxy continued on, unaware that the foundations holding it together had just walked away. The crystal spire reached into the purple sky of Andromeda Prime, its walls shimmering with light from 1,000 stars. Inside the Grand Council chamber, representatives from 200 alien species sat in curved rows that spiraled toward the center stage. The Valkorians, tall and covered in golden scales, occupied the front rows. Behind them sat the Thought Weavers, beings of pure energy contained in crystal shells. The ancient Krell Empire delegates wore flowing robes that displayed their rank and achievements. In the back corner, almost hidden by a support pillar, Ambassador Minho sat at the human delegation desk. The desk was small, meant for species the Galactic Council considered minor contributors. Minho listened to the debate about new trade routes between the Valkorian territories and the Krell mining worlds. The discussion had gone on for 3 hours. Not once had any delegate asked for human input. Minho didn't mind being ignored. He had learned long ago that humans were seen as useful but unremarkable. Good at paperwork, decent at following instructions, but not worthy of real respect. The galaxy's great powers saw humanity as clerks and janitors, necessary but forgettable. His communication device buzzed quietly. Minho glanced at the screen. Another report from Captain Yuna, commander of the Human Deep Space Monitoring Network. Pirates had tried to raid a Thoughtweaver cargo ship near the Deneb system. Human patrol vessels had intercepted them. 3 pirate ships destroyed. 0 casualties among the merchants. The Thoughtweavers would receive their cargo on time and probably never know how. Close they came to disaster. Minho marked the report as filed and checked the next message. Dr. Jiho reported that his medical team had contained a viral outbreak on a Krell colony world. 40,000 Krell lives saved. The local government had complained about human quarantine procedures being too strict. They never thanked Jiho for stopping a pandemic. Another message came from engineer Hyunwoo. The data network connecting the Western Spiral Arm had suffered a major failure. Hyunwoo's team had worked for 36 hours straight to restore it. 2 billion beings across 50 worlds had their communications back. None of them knew the network had failed. None of them knew humans had fixed it. At the center stage, Council Speaker Threx called for a vote on Resolution 4427. The resolution would redirect funding from auxiliary services to build a grand monument celebrating galactic unity. The monument would stand at the heart of Andromeda Prime, a crystal tower visible from orbit. It would cost more than the entire annual budget for emergency services. Minho pressed his button to request permission to speak. The light on his desk blinked yellow, indicating his request had been logged. He waited. 10 minutes passed. 20. The vote proceeded without acknowledging him. Delegates from powerful species praised the monument idea. They spoke about legacy and greatness and the glory of galactic civilization. Finally, Speaker Threx noticed the blinking yellow light. She looked annoyed. The human delegate wishes to speak. Very well. Ambassador Minho, please be brief. Minho stood. His voice was calm and professional. Thank you, Speaker. I wish to note that cutting auxiliary services funding will have serious consequences. Human teams currently monitor 4,000 star systems for threats. We operate 800 emergency response ships. We maintain the communication networks that connect all Council worlds. Without proper funding, these services will— Your concern is noted, Ambassador, Threx interrupted. However, the Council has determined that proper resource allocation requires prioritizing projects of galactic significance. Auxiliary services will continue under revised budgets and direct Council oversight. Your teams can adjust. Ambassador Quill of the Krell Empire stood without waiting for recognition. His voice boomed across the chamber. If I may add, Speaker, perhaps this is an opportunity for humanity to remember their place. They were brought into this council to serve, not to question the wisdom of their betters. The monument will inspire generations. Monitoring empty space lacks such vision. Several delegates made sounds of agreement. Minho remained standing, waiting to be recognized again. Threx ignored him. She called for the vote. The resolution passed with only 5 votes against it. The human vote was one of the 5. It changed nothing. The session ended. Delegates filed out in order of species rank. The Valkorians left first, followed by the Thoughtweavers and Krell. Dozens of other species followed. Minho waited until nearly everyone had gone. He gathered his data tablets and walked slowly through the empty chamber. Outside, the sky was darkening. Andromeda Prime's 3 moons were rising. Minho stood on the balcony and looked at the spot where the monument would be built. Currently, that location held the Human Emergency Coordination Center, a practical building with no decoration. Tomorrow, demolition would begin. His communicator buzzed again. This time it was a priority message from Captain Yuna. Ambassador, we've received multiple reports. Asteroid collision predicted in the Helios sector, 12 hours from now. 3 colony worlds at risk. My ships can intercept, but we need authorization for emergency burn. It will exceed our fuel budget for the quarter. Minho checked the data. The asteroids would hit Krell, Valkorian, and Thoughtweaver colonies. Millions of lives at risk. He authorized the emergency response immediately. Captain Yuna's ships would save those worlds. The Council would never know how close they came to disaster. And if they did know, they would probably criticize the fuel expenditure. He sent another message, this one encrypted with the highest security protocols. It went to Earth, to the office of the Prime Minister. The message was short: consultation protocol enacted. Request immediate policy review. Current situation unsustainable. The response came within an hour. Minho read it twice to be certain he understood. Then he looked up at the stars, at the vast galaxy humans had served for 2 centuries. A galaxy that saw them as servants, not partners. A galaxy that was about to learn a very hard lesson. He sent acknowledgement of the orders back to Earth. Then he began composing the formal notifications that would need to be filed with the Council. There were proper procedures for what was about to happen. Humanity would follow every rule perfectly. No one would be able to claim humans had violated any agreement. Minho worked through the night drafting documents. By morning, everything was prepared. In 3 months, the Galactic Council would vote on Resolution 4831, a restructuring that would strip humans of the little authority they still had. The Council expected humans to accept it quietly, as they had accepted every other insult. They would be wrong. Humanity had been patient. Humanity had been helpful. Humanity had been professional. But patience had limits. The galaxy was about to discover that humans could follow instructions very well, including the instruction they were about to give themselves. Stop helping those who don't appreciate the help. Ambassador Minho saved his documents and looked once more at the spot where the monument would stand, a monument to galactic unity, built on the ruins of the services that actually kept the galaxy unified. The irony was almost funny. Almost. He walked back to his quarters to sleep. Tomorrow would be a normal day of council business. But the countdown had begun.